Hi, Jen. It's
Hey,
Jenny.
Kurt.
Uh, let's talk about Noah.
Yeah.
And like yesterday was Feast of Trumpets.
hmm
How was it for you?
It was good. I enjoyed the day.
So did I. So did we. Hunter and
Yeah.
I were here, and you got a harmonica, and
Nice.
got to blast it all day, and made a. It's a day of shouting.
Yes. I went outside and shouted.
It's also a dual celebration. We're supposed to remember that the water subsided for
Yeah.
Noah then, and so
Which I think is super cool because Yah is like saying the water's full enough, like everything is covered over. Now it's time to start for that water to come down and for, things to start flourishing again.
so what caused that whole thing to begin with? Like,
Hmm.
there's a
Everything had become evil.
and well, it starts. It's found in Genesis chapter 6. It talks
Mhm.
about the flood, and then
Yeah.
not yeah. So I'm just gonna read Genesis chapter 6. What do you have queued up over there on Jubilees?
Or I guess it'd be Jubilees 5.
All right. So it starts off names of God Bible, and evil increases on the earth.
Mhm.
The number of the people increased all over the earth, and daughters were born to them. The sons of Elohim saw that the daughters of other humans were beautiful, so they married any woman they chose. And by married, do they think they walked down the aisle and stood before a priest and said, I do? Or maybe
Not
something
back in
else?
those days.
Then Yahuwah said, my spirit will not struggle with humans forever, because they are flesh and blood. They will live 120 years.
Okay, right there, I have a note in my Tanakh that says it's 120 years till the flood, but in Jubilees it says they will have a 120-year lifespan. So I know it's been talked about different ways.
So this thing here, too, is the number of people increased, Genesis 6:1, all over the earth, and daughters were born to them. And the sons of Elohim, which there's plenty of debates and arguments about this, but this is not. when I first came out at the church,
Yeah,
I've read this story and heard this story like thousands of times, and I don't
sure.
even. It didn't resonate to me what was being said until somebody had brought the book of Enoch and then the book of Jubilees into the whole situation. Like, what is going on here? Because clearly, the sons of Elohim, which, and he's got a lot of them. He claims a lot of people as sons, right?
hmm
Like Jacob's his son.
Yes.
Um, these are angels, and these are angels by name,
Yes.
and
And we have
they,
those specific ones that chose this are actually listed in Jubilee. So that's just another reason why to read Jubilees, because you get all those details. They name them. Enoch names these angels. Like
yeah.
you get all those details.
So then Yahuwah said, so this is just Genesis chapter 6, and you think about this too. You got the creation of the earth. Then you have Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. Seth is born,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 6. We're up to chapter 6, and he's destroying the earth because he's so mad. Like there's a
Not that
lot
he's
of
so mad, it's like it's gone so badly.
right.
These people have
There's
chosen to run amok so badly that he's ready to wipe the slate clean and get rid of absolutely everything that he created.
mhm. And so then it says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, as
Mhm.
well as later, when
Mhm.
the sons of Elohim, the angels, slept with the daughters of other humans and had children by them.
Mhm.
These children were famous long ago, and some versions say men of renowned, right? And what
Oh,
does your version say?
I have, they were the mighty who from old were men of devastation.
Mm.
And I think Jubilees talks about the order of this type of giant fought this kind of giant or ate this kind of giant. Like they were destructive. And
Yeah.
there was a hierarchy of those types of giants as well.
Right. And so then there's this Nephilim, which means to fall in Hebrew. And gosh, there's like a line of clothing now that has Neph, N-E-F, but I mean, they're referencing these things. These things are
I saw a nutrition store that their line was feed the giant within. I'm like, I don't think you want to say that. I was like, what?
So Yahuwah, okay, so humans had children by them. These children were famous long ago. And Yahuwah saw how evil humans had become on the earth. All day long, their deepest thoughts were nothing but evil. Yahuwah was sorry that he had made humans on the earth, and he was heartbroken. So Yahuwah said, I will wipe off the face of the earth these humans that I created. I will wipe out not only humans, but all domestic animals, crawling animals, and birds. I'm sorry that I made them, but Yahuwah was pleased with Noah. Yeah. And then we can go into the account of the descendants of Noah. But for this discussion, we're looking at a very strange thing that happens right here in just the first 8 verses of Genesis 6. And it's different versions talk about their thoughts were evil continually. They were violent continuously. They were they had corrupted. All flesh had become corrupted. Right? And when it says all flesh, it's literally all flesh. Like why would he kill the animals too? So what would that indicate to you?
There were some scientific experiments, shall we say, running amok. Like if you're messing with the DNA, if you're messing with how, like basically anti what Yah had made, you're going against his own workings, against his own creation. He's saying everything is absolutely evil.
Right.
Enough to wipe it all clean, and we're in the 6th chapter. Like, that seems really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of, the whole reason why I want to have this discussion, some remembrance of what happened with Noah's day. I encourage everybody to go read that story again in Genesis. But
yeah, there's not even in Genesis, like in Jubilees. You know, you get all the real details there.
Right. Well, definitely read it in Jubilees, and definitely read it in Enoch 1. Okay, there's 3 versions of Enoch that are out there, books. Book 2 and 3, and you can research this if you want. Those weren't found in Qumran. They were found in a cave south of it that was occupied by the Essenes, which are the same thing as the Gnostics. They wrote these books way after. And it's historically proven, but Enoch was legit, man. That was a book written. This guy was there. He was there. He walked with Yahuwah, and then he wasn't. He was just gone. He was.
And the cool thing about Enoch is when you read that book, there's a lot more details, just like Jubilees again. And, you know, you just catch different things that explain things that you've read in Genesis, and then it makes so much more sense, I think.
And there's things that we do today that are explained in Enoch, that these angels, these Nephilim, the ones who chose to fall to have sex with women, taught humans. And you look at stuff that we do today. Like this is it seems like a minor thing, but they taught shading or shadows of the eyes for women, right? That was the thing, and I'm like, why? You know, to attract men, right? So it's I guess it comes down to whether people actually believe this or not, right? So it almost seems so impossible that okay, what am I trying to say here? There's
I don't know.
there's myths, right? Like
Yes.
I know that in school when I was a kid, we had to study Greek and Roman mythology, right?
Mhm.
And then when you get later on in high school, we did some Egyptian studies, and then some college we did some Norse studies, and they're all repeats of the same story, just different
Yes.
languages, different cultures, right? And
Mhm.
I mean, if you think about it logically, there were 3 sons of Noah on this boat, and then they spread all over the earth. And these people would have remembered something occurring before the flood, and they passed these stories down. The Vikings were famous for their sagas, until they started writing them down.
Yeah.
And so, how do you get like these themes of different? And there's like this idea of a god man, like a combination of a god and a human. Well, that's right here in Genesis 6, right?
Yeah.
So
It is. And I'm glad you mentioned the 3 sons, because that's like the very next verse.
Mm.
So Noah had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And if you read that in Genesis, you assume they're triplets, right? But if you read that here in Jubilees, it literally says, so this is in verse 33 of chapter 4. In the 25th Jubilee, Noah married a woman whose name was Emzara, the daughter of Barakhil, the daughter of his father's brother, during the first year in the 5th week. In his 3rd year, she gave birth to Shem for him. In its 5th year, so 2 years later, she gave birth to Ham for him. In the 1st year, during the 6th week, she gave birth to Japheth. So I think that was 3 years later. But just those details of years and what Jubilee we're in and how, that time separates these boys gives you those details that they're not actually triplets. I just want to plug that in.
No, that's great. And then Shem. And there's also this table of nations that comes from these 3.
Yes.
And there's the idea of race, like how do all these different types of people and who went where after they left the ark. And there's in the time of Peleg, it'll tell you, especially in Jubilees, it talks where they went.
Yes.
And so these races come from these 3 boys. And
right. Which, I mean, everybody comes from Noah. That's why I never understood people not getting along race-wise, because you all got off the same boat. You all can trace yourselves back to Noah. I'm going to start in Jubilees 5. When humanity began to multiply on the surface of the entire earth, and daughters were born to them, the angels of Yahweh in a certain year of this Jubilee saw that they were beautiful to look at. So they married of them. Whomever they chose. They gave birth to children for them, and they were giants. Wickedness increased on the earth. All animate beings corrupted their way, every one of them, from people to cattle, animals, birds, everything that moves about on the ground. All of them corrupted their way and their prescribed course. They began to devour one another, and wickedness increased on the earth. Every thought of all humanity's knowledge was evil like this all the time. Yahweh saw that the earth was corrupt, that all animate beings had corrupted their prescribed course, and that all of them, every one that was on the earth, had acted wickedly before his eyes. He said that he would obliterate people and all animate beings that were on the surface of the earth that he created. He was pleased with Noah alone. Against his angels, whom he had sent to the earth, he was angry enough to uproot them from all their positions of authority. He told us to tie them up in the depths of the earth. Now they are tied within them and are alone. Regarding their children, there went out from Yah's presence in order to strike them with the sword and to remove them from beneath the sky. He said, "My spirit will not remain on people forever, for they are flesh. Their lifespan is to be 120 years. He sent his sword among them so that they would kill one another. They began to kill each other until all of them fell by the sword and were obliterated from the earth. Now their fathers were watching, but afterwards they tied up in the depths of the earth until the great day of judgment, when there will be condemnation on all who have corrupted their ways and their actions before Yahweh. He obliterated all from their places. There remained no one of them whom he did not judge for all their wickedness. He made a new and righteous nature for all his creatures, so that they would not sin in their whole nature until eternity. Everyone will be righteous, each according to his kind, for all time. The judgment of them all has been ordained and written on the heavenly tablets. There is no injustice. As for all who transgress from their way, in which it was ordained for them to go, if they do not go in it, judgment has been written down for each creature and for each kind. There is nothing that is in heaven or on the earth, in the light, the darkness, Sheol, the deep, or the dark place. All their judgments have been ordained, written, and inscribed. He will exercise judgment regarding everyone, the great one in accord with his greatness, the small one in accord with his smallness, each one in accord with his way. He is not one who shows favoritism, nor one who takes a bribe. If he says he will execute judgment against everyone, if someone gave everything on earth, he would not show favoritism, nor would he accept it from him, because he is a righteous judge. Regarding the Israelites, it has been written and ordained, if they turn to him in the right way, he will forgive all their wickedness and will pardon all their sins. It has been written and ordained that he will have mercy on all who turn from all their errors once each year. To all who corrupt their ways and their plans before the flood, no favor was shown except to Noah alone, because favor was shown to him for the sake of his children, whom he saved from the flood waters. For his sake, because his mind was righteous in all his ways, as it had been commanded concerning him. He did not transgress from anything that had been ordained for him. Yahweh said that he would obliterate everything on the land, from people to cattle, animals, birds, and whatever moves about on the ground. He ordered Noah to make himself an ark in order to save himself from the floodwaters. Noah made an ark in every respect as he had ordered him during the 27th Jubilee of years, in the 5th week during its 5th year. He entered it during the 6th year in the 2nd month, on the 1st of the 2nd month until the 16th. He and all that we brought to him entered the ark. Yahweh closed it from the outside on the 17th in the evening. Yahweh opened the 7 floodgates of heaven and the openings of the sources of the great deep. There being 7 openings, the floodgates began to send water down from the sky for 40 days and 40 nights, while the sources of the deep brought waters up until the whole earth was full of water. The waters increased on the earth. The waters rose 15 cubits above every high mountain. The ark rose above the earth and moved about on the surface of the waters. The waters remained standing on the surface of the earth for 5 months, 150 days. Then the ark came to rest on the summit of Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. During the 4th month, the sources of the great deep were closed, and the floodgates of heaven were held back. On the 1st of the 7th month, all the sources of the earth's deep places were opened, and the waters started to go down into the deep below. On the 1st of the 10th month, the summits of the mountains became visible, and on the 1st of the 1st month, the earth became visible. The waters dried up from above the earth in the 5th week, in its 7th year, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, the earth was dry. On its 27th day, he opened the ark and sent from it the animals, birds, and whatever moves about. So there we hit those remembrance days.
Okay. I want to go into Enoch.
Yeah.
some people won't accept this book at all, and that's on you. I don't really care. I've made peace with this book a long time ago, and I think.
Well, I think the cool thing of Enoch is that it gives you more of who Noah was, like the surprise at his birth, that he glowed and his father wasn't sure that he wasn't one of the angel's sons. Like he had to go to Enoch to be like, is this really my kid? Are you sure? Because this seems really strange. So you get that whole background story of it.
And apparently he was really tall and almost an albino in looks, you know, and so it had very blonde hair from what I've read anyway. Okay, so we'll go to chapter 1, and this is why I like the book of Enoch. Okay, so if you know that the book of Enoch was not available for the longest time, it was, and then it wasn't, right? And in the Eastern Orthodoxy of Christianity, they still print what they call the Apocrypha, which means hidden, right? I believe the word Apocrypha means hidden, right? So these books are hidden, but it doesn't mean that they're not present. And the idea of a book, which we've talked about before, is a new concept in humanity. Like over time, there were scrolls, so they would have read from these scrolls. But this is the interesting thing about Enoch is, okay, keep that in mind. It hasn't been available to read for the longest time. And then the first chapter says the words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous. And this is us who will be living in the days of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. And Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by Yahuwah, took up his parable and said, I saw a vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is far to come. So here's a book that has disappeared from history, and now all of a sudden it's back.
So in that first verse that you read, mine says, the words of the blessing with which Enoch blessed the righteous chosen, who will be present on the day of tribulation, to remove all the enemies, and the righteous will be saved.
That's pretty radical. I was going to skip down to the last verse 8.
Okay.
But and the earth shall be wholly rent in sunder, and all this upon the earth shall perish, and there shall be a judgment upon all. It talks about flames and burning. Like first time he wiped it out with water, and the second time he's going to wipe it out with fire. But verse 8 says, but with the righteous he will make peace, and he will protect the elect, and mercy shall be upon them, and they shall all belong to Yahuwah, and they shall be prospered, and they shall all be blessed, and he will help them all, and light shall appear unto them, and he will make peace with them. Which we've been reading the prophets, and this completely aligns with what the prophets have said. You know, Yahuwah is you're gonna wake up. You're gonna remember me. You're gonna start following me. You're gonna start keeping my ways, and then. So I'm going to skip down to chapter 2 goes into the creation of the earth, and then we'll go to chapter 3, fallen angels. And people have said before, the understanding of, I'm going to use this word demons, which they've referred to them as fallen angels. They're really disembodied spirits of giants. Right? Because you have a blending of a human being and an angel. These are two different DNA types. So they weren't supposed to exist, and now they do. Their offspring are these people. This flood comes, and now these disembodied spirits are where? They can't go away, right? They're not accepted into the glory of Yah. They're just here. So when you're being plagued by these, I've heard people say, I'm being spiritually attacked. You're being spiritually attacked by the disembodied spirit of a giant. And these things were vicious. They were brutal. They ate people. Enoch has to petition Yahuwah to intervene because these things are destroying everything. Their appetites are unsuppressed, like they cannot eat enough. So it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another. So there's 3 witnesses. You need 3 witnesses to establish a matter. There it is. You got it in Genesis chapter 6. You got it in Jubilees chapter 5, right? And then you got it again in Enoch. And people have argued that who are these sons of God? Well, it's got to be Seth, right? No, it's not Seth. It says clearly right here. And B'nai Ha-Elohim is the Hebrew for it. So it would have been the sons of heaven. It would have been the angels. So, and the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza, who was the leader, said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. Angels can't sin. Yes, they can. They're making a decision to disobey Yahuwah, man. You're not supposed to be blending. You're not supposed to be mixing DNA. You're not kind. These are their kind. Animals are this kind. You know, think about loading the ark, and he talks about to each of its kind. That's what loaded up on the ark. You know, they've found dinosaur bones, and they have like T-Rex bones and Velociraptor bones, and they said all flesh should become corrupt. Well, we'll get into it. These guys are mixing. They're mixing DNAs, man. Like, why wouldn't they? This guy, Simjaza, knows that he's going to be punished, right? But he's going to do it anyway. Right? So, anyway, I'll keep reading. I alone shall pay the penalty of the great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together, and bound themselves by multiple imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. They called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders. 200 angels decide to come down and hook up with women. And if you know the stories of coming down from Olympus, and these so-called, doing the word gods in air quotes, come down from Olympus and breed with women. You have this thing known as a demigod throughout, half human, half god. It comes from this, man. It comes from this.
Yes. So you have all those names listed, and then it says that these are their chiefs of 10. So there's this hierarchy, there's this authority kind of system. And then like chapter 7 is what it is in my version, but you have...
yeah, they've got all the names of these guys. I'm not going to read them because I don't want to say their names.
Right.
And then 7 says, and all the others together with them took unto themselves wives. And the word wife, again, we're not talking about people who said I do. They took unto themselves. That's that R word. That's not, And each chose for them himself one. And they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And you think about witchcraft and all this stuff that people do. There's a story.
Like there's the root of it right there.
There's a story of
Rebecca.
Rebecca? Okay, it's Rebecca.
Yeah.
And she trades places with her sister. And
She wants her son's mandrakes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, and so I didn't know this until it was shown in a movie, but it used to be lore that if you placed a mandrake root under a bed in a bowl of milk, it would help you get pregnant, right? So that is what that story is all about. You don't know that, but then here's these guys, and mandrake is a root. It's a root that looks like, when you cut it, it looks like a human, right? So it's
interesting.
And they became pregnant. Okay, equated them with plants, and they became pregnant, and they bear great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. There's a story of the Hopi Indians who supposedly cornered the last giant in America in a cave and burned him alive. But they made the complaint in their writing that these giants were eating them. We have to kill these people because we don't want to get eaten anymore.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And this number, and 1,000 was 3,000 ells. I've heard said up to 30 feet tall and more.
Wow.
Yeah. So think about giant redwood trees. You know, okay. Let me just share something with you. You know the you heard of tigers and ligers?
Yeah.
So these animals are each of a kind, right? They're both cats, right? But the lions mate with lions and the tigers mate with tigers. Well, if you mate a female tiger with a male lion, the growth hormone that's in that lion from the male, right? If a male and female lion, that growth hormone that stops them from growing, they get a certain size.
Sure.
But these ligers and tigers, because they're crossbred species, never stop growing. They get massive. There's a picture of one that's almost as big as a bus. It's standing next to the bus, and it's massive, unbelievably massive. Yeah. And so, yeah,
I would have to eat an elephant like every day.
So you have the cross DNA, so that growth inhibitor that is put there by Yahuwah is not in these beings now because it's a cross DNA. So, well, there were no giants. I've heard people say that before too. Well, what about Goliath? You got Goliath. That's a famous story, man.
Are you kidding? You have old newspaper headlines from the 1800s in America. Like
Abraham Lincoln says that there's a story up in Buffalo, New York. I want to say it's Buffalo, near Niagara Falls, and he makes the statement, even though the Hopi said that maybe they killed the last giant around them, but he said we killed the last giant near Niagara Falls.
Wow.
Like, that was a statement by Abraham Lincoln. That's crazy, dude. There's evidence of these guys everywhere, and even in the scriptures. Who is it? Goliath has brothers. That's why David picks up extra stones. Right?
Yes, he had the 5 stones, not just that one. And he didn't think he'd miss. He knew he was going to hit his target.
There's Og of Bashan, right? This guy's bed alone, it was 15 feet long. So, and then you also have when they're going into Jacob and the spies go on and look at the land that they're supposed to go into, and they came back with that bad report. There's giants in the land. We're like grasshoppers next to them.
Right.
They felt that they came right up to their knees, the full grown men, and it's like this. People say there were no giants. What are you talking about, man? I
think the evidence is stacked against that idea.
Right. Okay, and they became pregnant, and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed. Okay, I'll skip that. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. There's that word lawless, man. There's an order to things, and these guys mess it up. They mess it
They
up
do.
bad. So when you're talking to the supposed dead, when you're contacting spiritual entities on the other side with your seances or your... this is who you're talking to. These the descendants of the giants.
And we have record in Jubilees, like Noah's grandchildren were complaining, we're having trouble, right? And so at that time, Yah got rid of most of these like evil spirits or whatever you want to name them, just because they were running amok. They were causing too much trouble. We have Mastera mentioned at the time of Abraham. And here in Enoch, I just want to mention it's further on in Enoch, like chapter 65. But a command has gone forth from the presence of Yahweh against the inhabitants of the earth. So again, he's talking about Noah's day and that the flood is coming. That their end is accomplished, for they have learned all the secrets of the angels and all the violence of the Satans and their powers, the hidden secrets and all the powers of those who practice sorcery, the powers of brightly colored garments, the powers of those who cast molten images for all the earth, and how silver is produced. I mean, it goes on and on the reasons that this flood is coming, but I just thought that's super interesting to bring out that the violence of the Satans, our culture believes usually that Satan is one entity, and yet Yah has a role for these things, but it's more like a role. We have the role in Job. They play a part, but it's not like just one thing. It's more like you're saying with the spirits of the giants. So
right, and there's Mastema who petitions Yahuwah because he's going to lock all these guys up. Yes. And he's like, let's use these guys to...
He needed that workforce, right? His role is to show mankind their wickedness. So how can I do that job on my own if you get rid of all of us? Like, I still need some help here. So
so he keeps 10% of them out, you know, and it tells you how many angels descended on Mount Hermon at that time, right? But it doesn't tell you how many of these giants are all
so they reproduced, so there could be way more, but at least it's only 10%. So it's not like they're everywhere, but at the same time, that role is to show mankind their wickedness. So you know, there's a job that they are doing, there's a purpose, and Yah created all things, so he's really in charge of everything. But in his system of operations that he has created, I mean, there is a role for this. It's just, if we are Yah's people, if we are keeping his commands, if we are following his ways and celebrating his days, then I really don't think we have anything to worry about. But Yah has his ways of disciplining and getting our attention.
So then it goes on to verse 11 here, and it says, and Azazel, and if you know scripture, isn't there the Azazel goat? Isn't that?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the one you... And there's also movies, like the, boy. These guys are mentioned through everything. Hollywood knows about these guys. There's a character in the X-Men who's actually named Azazel, and he looks like a devil. He's red, and he zips in and out. He's like able to come in and out of physical existence, right? He's a teleporter.
I mean, it makes sense. All of our stories go back to these same stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can have our big stories on the screen these days, and the Greeks had what? Scribes to write it down. So people to act it out.
So then, like we said, there's versions that say that men's thoughts were violence continuously, right? And Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth. This is before the flood. You know, and people are saying we didn't have metal. Well, right here is telling me we did. Made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony.
Antimony.
Antimony. I have to look that word up because I don't know what it is. Give me 2 seconds here.
Sure.
Do you know what it is? Does that ring a bell with you? I can edit this out right now.
Well, it says eye paint after that, so I wonder if it isn't makeup, but I could be wrong.
Antimony is a silvery white metal that is found in the Earth's crust. Antimony ores are mined with them mixed with other metals from antimony alloys or combined with oxygen, and I'll put that on the screen. And the beautifying of eyelids and all the kinds of costly stones and all coloring tinctures. I just think about people gathering diamonds and jewels and all these things from all over the earth, and just how valuable these things become. And this guy, this guy, people will kill for these things, right? And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Eramaris, the resolving of enchantments. I just don't want to say this guy. This other guy taught astrology. And then Kokabel, the constellations. Kokabel. So a lot of these names just ring something in my mind, because in South American lore, there's they worship a deity called Kokapali, right? And so he's also supposed to be a star entity, and Kokabel taught them about the constellations, right? And then he's also that one that's pictured blowing a horn. He's like kind of bent over. And I've seen lots of people get this dude on their tattooed on themselves because they think it's cool. It's this guy, right? Ezekiel, which is kind of interesting. The knowledge of the clouds. Erekiel, the signs of the earth. Shamazel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. As men perished, they cried. Their cry went up to heaven. This goes down to 4. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said to one another, the earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. This is just so awkwardly worded. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, souls of men, make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. And then they go on to present the case that these guys are bad and we got to go do something. And you can go on and read this, but it's definitely an interesting study. Like, if you're playing around with stuff, go read that list of everything that these bad guys taught men. And gosh, just stop immediately. Full stop. Burn it. Get rid of it. Get it out of your life. Tarot cards, Ouija boards, talking to the spirits. You think you're going to talk to your parents who passed away or your children who passed away. It's not who you're talking to. You're talking to these guys. You can't see them. They're on the other side of the veil. They all drowned. And keep away from them, man. They don't like you. They're not your friends. They're not your descendants, man. I can remember them talking about this stuff a lot when I was a kid in church settings, no less. You know, people believed in spirits back then. It doesn't seem like we do anymore. And it doesn't seem like we have our guard up anymore. Like, you know, it says the dead know nothing. Don't talk to the dead. He's saying that for a reason, because you're not talking to the dead. You're talking to these 10% he kept out. Well, to mess with you. That's all I have to say on this one. How about you?
I think we're good.
I'm going to try to get into the tribes next time, because that's a fun topic. All right. Hopefully you guys are ready for the fall feasts. And what's up next on the agenda? A Day of Atonement, right?
Yes.
And when are we doing that?
Next Thursday. To Friday evening.
Okay. It starts Thursday evening and ends Friday evening? Okay. Cool. All right. Well, have a great one. We'll talk to you later. Bye. Bye. Can you say bye?
Bye.